What's going on, everybody? This is TrendKiLL. I'm still kind of getting over a cold. I got a pimple. It's Know Your Enemy. Just roll the intro. Just playing. I feel a lot better. However, my voice is still kind of hoarse, so we're gonna try to get through this. Sorry for being gone last week. Being sick really sucks. However, we don't have time for apologies and formalities. We have a lot to cover in this video, so let's get the intro out of the way. If you haven't seen this series before, check out the Neath Guide. That'll explain everything that's gonna go on in this video. Also, if you're new to the game, check out my Beginner's Guide. That's gonna get you caught up on some of the things you might hear in this video. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get into it. Scylla, the horror of the deep. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is take a look at a visual representation of what Scylla is good at. You can obviously see she is very one-sided. Scylla is the definition of a glass cannon, somebody who can do a ton of damage, but if she gets caught, she will die extremely quickly. You can also see she's got a little bit of mobility and a lot of control, but no real utility, defense, or healing to speak of, so let's take a look at her kit and see why she's mapped this way. Now, before we get into her abilities, let's talk about her passive quickly. If you remember from my Thor guide, I said that very few characters in SMITE actually get an innate bonus magical or physical power. Thor is one of those gods, Scylla is another one of those gods. Essentially, for every ability that she maxes out, she gets a bonus 20 magical power, which gives her a total of 80 free magic power at level 20. So it's very important for Scylla players to prioritize maxing their abilities so they get that bonus magical power. Alright, now let's briefly go through her abilities and talk about any highlights, and then we're going to come back and actually spend a little more time talking about what makes Scylla's abilities unique. So first off, Sikkim is a root and a cripple. Remember that. If you're used to getting hit by Neath's spirit arrow, you'll know that it only roots you, meaning you can still dash and jump out of that root. However, Sikkim is a root and a cripple, and cripples completely disable your jumps, dashes, and teleports, essentially leaving you there helpless. The only thing that's going to get you out of a Sikkim is a cleanse like purification beads. Now, the description of Crush is pretty easy to understand. Just remember that this ability has a 30% slow on it for 1 second after she hits you with the ability. Now, her third ability, Sentinel, looks like it's just her escape move. However, it can also be used as a temporary ward. So not only can she throw Sentinel in an area to see what's going on, she can also teleport to that area if she needs to. Now, as far as her ultimate, I'm a Monster, is concerned, all you really need to know about this ability is that it does an absolute ton of damage, and if she gets a kill with it, she gets to use it again. If she gets a second kill, she gets to use it a third time, and so on. So she can use this to completely wipe your entire team if she happens to have it set up properly. So if you happen to hear, "I'm a monster," make sure that you have some sort of escape or damage immunity prepared. Now let's go back and talk about what makes her kit unique from other gods. In addition to her passive, Quick Learner, there's another reason to make sure you're prioritizing getting your levels to max rank as fast as you can. Every single one of her abilities gets a bonus to that ability when it's at max rank. So starting with Sikkim, usually it will only hit and root and cripple one person. However, at max rank, that will split to another 2 people, so 3 people total. So if 3 people happen to be standing right next to each other, you can root and cripple all 3 of them. Crush gets a bonus debuff that will reduce the target's magical protection by 25%. Sentinel gets a bonus that completely removes the line of sight constraints from the ward part of this ability, meaning that you can place Sentinel on one side of a wall and see to the other side of it, which is pretty cool. And her ultimate, I'm a Monster, she moves twice as fast when in the ult, so she normally gets a 35% movement speed increase. At max rank, she gets a 70% movement speed increase. So you can see that while she might start off slow, every single time she maxes out an ability, and as she gets later and later in the game, she's going to have more and more damage potential. Okay, so into the mechanics section, this is where we're going to talk about some things that you need to watch out for as you're playing against a Scylla. Now, before we get into ability-specific tips, I've got some general tips to go over first. For starters, right before the mechanics section, I mentioned that Scylla was very slow to start. She doesn't start gaining steam until really mid-game. Now, to that point, there's a couple things I want to mention. Before level 3, she's probably not going to have an escape, and she is super squishy, which makes her a prime candidate for an extremely early gank. Not to mention, she's not going to be able to effectively clear a minion wave with just Crush until like right before level 10. So if you're one of those gods like, we'll just use Ra for instance, since we've already discussed him, if you're one of those gods like Ra who finds it pretty easy to push a wave at level 1, you're going to keep Scylla back in her tower losing gold. However, if you let her get some farm, if you let her stay out of her tower and you let her get a kill on you, she's going to get to that mid game that much much faster, and she's going to be much harder to contain late game. Now, if you've never played Scylla before and you're here watching this video to learn tips on how to play her, you now might be thinking, well, Scylla sucks. What a crappy way to start off the mechanics section. However, don't be discouraged. Remember, I talked about how Scylla gets more and more powerful as we max out abilities. So to maximize the potential of her passive and the bonuses she gets on her abilities at max rank, we're going to talk about a tactic called point skipping. Alright, so for the first time ever in Know Your Enemy, we're live. I am controlling Scylla as I speak. This is a pretty big deal. We're making history, people. So if my voice cracks, I'm still getting over my little sore throat thing. If I sound like I'm going through puberty, my bad. But let's talk about point skipping. So essentially, point skipping is a tactic that can be used to make sure that you're maximizing your damage potential as soon as you possibly can, which, as we know on Scylla, is extremely important. You want to get to the max rank of your abilities as fast as you can. Point skipping is going to help you do that. So you can see I've already got a point in my Crush. That's a normal level 1 ability. You have to have Crush at level 1, otherwise you're going to fall significantly behind. So let's move on to level 2. We're going to grab Sick'em because you need that for control, you need that for poke damage, stuff like that. Level 3, you have an option. You can grab another point in Crush, or you can grab a point in Sentinel. For this example, we're going to grab a point in Crush. We're going to assume we're playing safe enough to where, you know, we can do some extra damage, right? We're going to clear that wave as fast as we can. So moving on to level 4, now Smite tries to force our hand. It says, dude, come on, TrendKiLL, you got too many points in Crush. Spread the love, man. Get one of your other abilities. And I'm like, you know what, Smite? I'm tired of your shenanigans. I'll do what I want. So I do not have to spend this point. This is called point skipping. Now watch what happens to Crush when I turn level 5. Boom! Now I have the option to get Crush again. You basically trick the system. So I can put a point in my ultimate and put a point in my Crush at level 5 and put nothing in at level 4. That gives me the ability to skip an ability that I don't want to get. However, I would not recommend doing that this early on Scylla. You need Sentinel as an escape. Around level 5 is when the ganks are going to start coming from the jungle, and if you don't have Sentinel as Scylla and you get ganked, you're probably going to die. She's not very strong. So at level 4, I would recommend probably getting your Sentinel. I'm going to get it at level 6 so that we get caught up on the whole Sentinel ordeal. And then we're going to show you where I would actually point skip. So at level 7, make sure you grab your Crush. At level 8, uh-oh, Smite's trying to be crazy again. I can't get my Crush. So we're going to skip our point at level 8. And we're going to max out Crush and grab a second point in our ultimate. That's what that's called. So now we've got maximized Crush at level 9. It's the earliest you can maximize an ability. So now let's go through, put a point in Sick'em, another point in Sick'em, another point in Sick'em. Now this is not point skipping, but this is a decision that you have to make on a god like Scylla. At level 13, I have the option to put a point in my ultimate. Normally you would say, hell yeah, I want to do more damage. Why wouldn't I put a point in my ultimate here? Well, one, the ultimate's going to give you an extra 100 damage from 500 to 600 from rank 2 to 3. Nothing different, just 100 damage. At rank 5 or max rank on Sick'em, you get an extra 50 damage, which is you know, half of what you're getting with your ultimate, but you get your max rank bonus of 2 additional enemies being hit. So now you can hit 3 minions and help you clear a wave faster. You can get 3 gods. If you're getting ganked, you can hit the mid lane god and the jungler. So this is more important in this scenario than your ultimate is. So we're going to grab Sick'em. Now it's basically 4/3. Make sure you grab your ultimate when you can and grab Sentinel because you have to. So here we have another option, our ult, grab it, Sentinel, Sentinel, ult, now we're level 20. So that's how I would normally level Scylla up. Point skipping on Scylla and decision making on Scylla as you're leveling is extremely important. This is something that can be said on a lot of gods, but it is absolutely imperative on a god like Scylla to make sure you're getting to that damage potential as fast as you possibly can. Alright, so at the risk of not being still live, I'm going to go back to boring old recorded TrendKiLL. Wasn't that fun, class? Alright, let's talk about our first ability-specific tip. This is for Sick'em. Remember that Sick'em is Scylla's setup ability. Holy crap, that's a lot of S's. I could be a rapper.
Sick'em is Scylla's setup ability, sucker, so you should watch out for my Crush. I'm a monster, motherfucker.
What happened? Oh my god, I blacked out for a second. I'm coming for the title, Kelly. Alright, so let's reel this back in. Sick'em is a setup ability, sucka, and if you get hit with it, you're rooted and crippled. You're stuck there. Unless you have beads or a cleanse or an ultimate to get out of it, you're pretty much screwed. You're gonna see that followed up with a crush or an I'm a monster, and those both hurt, which takes me to my next tip. Remember that crush does a ton of damage in addition to extra things. So base damage is 290 plus 80% of your magical power plus 25% protection debuff at max rank plus a slow for 2 seconds at max rank. This ability does a ton of stuff and it does it very well. Odds are when this hits max rank at level 9, you're not going to have a ton of magic defense, if any at all, and if you don't, this ability is easily going to do 400 or 500 damage to you, so you have to be very careful getting hit with Sick'em to set up for a crush. Now, as far as Sentinel's concerned, this is a very good escape, but it is her only sense of mobility whatsoever, and it's very easy to telegraph. It's a lot like Chalk or Bastet, where you know where they're going to go to when they teleport. If Scylla uses this to engage you, it's for one of 2 reasons. 1, she knows that she's got enough damage to kill you, or 2, she doesn't know what she's doing and you can probably take advantage of it. So that's up to you to know the ability that you have versus the ability that she has, and if she happens to use her Sentinel and miss her Sick'em, you can probably punish that pretty effectively because she has no defense to speak of. And last but not least, let's talk about her ultimate, I'm a monster. I've got a few tips for this one, the first of which being, do not feed the monster. Don't get killed by this ultimate at all costs, because if you do, it's just going to start a chain reaction of damage. You get killed by it, then your teammate gets killed by it. Before you know it, she's got a triple or a quadra or even a pentakill. That can happen, and it can happen more often than you think. So if you have an Aegis or you have a jump and you can dodge that ability so that she misses it, you stop that chain reaction right off the bat. So her ultimate could go from a potential killing spree to completely worthless because it did no damage. So if you're the first targeted, you have the ability to render Scylla's ultimate completely useless just by using an Aegis amulet or jumping out or dashing out or dodging it completely. So remember that, Scylla's ultimate is kind of like an all or nothing thing. She either hits and continues to hit, or she misses and it's over. Now, we've already talked about Scylla using Sick'em as a setup for I'm a Monster, but what we haven't talked about is her using her teammate stuns as a setup for I'm a Monster. So, if there's a Neith on the enemy team who can ult you from across the map, if there's an Amir who's going to blink in and freeze you, Scylla knows that. And she knows that if you're going to get frozen, she can use that stun instead of Sick'em as a setup for I'm a Monster. So be very careful with all of the enemy team's stuns or roots or cripples or anything that's going to hold you in place and make you a victim of the monster. And last but not least, let's talk about her full kit combo. You're usually going to see a setup with Sick'em into a crush without the explosion of the crush so that she can make sure she's getting that 25% protection debuff on you, hitting you with I'm a Monster, and then exploding the crush. This is a ton of damage, and if you're not a Guardian or a Warrior, late game, you're probably going to get 100 to 0'd by this. So you know the cliche, dynamite comes in small packages. Scylla is the personification of that saying. So that's Scylla in a nutshell, guys. Hopefully you learned something today. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me. And make sure down in the comment section that you just let Kelly know that it's obvious I'm a better rapper. So anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Make sure you come by next week when we're going to talk about Ares, the Greek god of war with the scary-faced fire shield thing.